he rejected you. Maybe he said you were too much. Maybe he said he wasn't ready. But what he didn't expect was silence. What happens when a woman says nothing after being pushed away? Most people think men feel relief after rejecting someone. They assume he just moves on, unbothered, unaffected. But here's the truth no one's talking about. Your silence is a mirror, and men hate what they see in it. See, when you don't cry, beg, or text long paragraphs, he loses control. And what he thought would be a clean break starts to turn into emotional chaos for him, not you. Because now he's forced to sit with a version of himself he never prepared for. The man who might have just lost a woman who truly saw him. And here's the kicker. It's not your absence that drives him crazy. It's the mystery inside it. Is she done? Does she hate me? Did I misjudge her worth? These questions echo louder than any message you could have sent. In this video, I'm going to break down the real psychology behind your silence, why it hits harder than anger, why men spiral when you go quiet, and what's happening inside his mind while he pretends to be fine. Because once you understand what silence does to a man, you'll stop wasting words and start using your power. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear will forever change how you handle rejection and how you rise from it. Let's get into it. Let's get brutally honest here. When a man rejects you, it may seem like he's confident, even relieved. Maybe he's calm, detached, even a little smug. But behind that mask, a whole different storm is brewing. One most men will never admit out loud. But first there's a high, yes, a high, because rejection gives him control. He's the one calling the shots. He feels like he's regaining power over his space, his time, his emotions. It's a dopamine hit. He thinks, I did what I had to do. I'm free now. But what he doesn't realize is that this freedom is temporary, and it's built on the belief that you'll still be there, that maybe you'll chase, maybe you'll fall apart, maybe you'll keep texting, but then you don't. And that's when everything shifts. Silence isn't just quiet to a man. It's a void. And men hate voids. Because now he starts to wonder, did I misjudge her value? Why isn't she reacting? Was she stronger than I thought? Wait, did I just reject someone who was actually rare? So this is where doubt creeps in. The male mind works like this. If something's easy to get or always available, it's devalued. But when access is cut off without explanation, the mystery intensifies the emotional weight. Now, instead of being sure, he's stuck obsessing, replaying moments, reading into your silence, checking your social media, wondering if someone else is getting what he just gave up. And by the time he realizes your silence was an emotional manipulation, but emotional maturity, it's often too late. You've already leveled up. You've already moved on. And that's what scares him the most. He doesn't tell his friends this. He won't show it. But internally, he's replaying the breakup, trying to justify it. And the more he tries to convince himself, the more obvious it becomes. He's not over it. That's the twist. Most women assume he's moved on. But many men start to emotionally unravel in silence. Not right away, but gradually. Regret doesn't come from your reaction. It comes from your lack of one. Let's be clear. He never thought you'd actually disappear. When he rejected you, he expected a response. Maybe not instantly, but eventually. A double text, a call, a sign that you were still orbiting around his decision. That's the unspoken assumption most men carry when they walk away. You'll still be there. So when you go quiet, fully disappear, something short circuits in his mind. Wait, she's not reaching out. She didn't try to fix this. She just left. This reaction shocks him not because he misses you immediately, but because he didn't expect you to have that level of self-control. Most people react emotionally. Most chase closure, cling to explanations, or try to make the other person see their worth. But when you vanish without a trace, you send a message louder than any words. I don't need to prove anything to you. And that shakes him deeply. See, men are used to being wanted. Even after rejection, they expect to still hold a kind of emotional leverage, that unspoken power of I had her. But your disappearance strips that illusion away. Now, instead of being the one who left, he starts feeling like he was left behind. Psychologically, this causes cognitive dissonance. He made a choice, but now the outcome feels different than expected. He wanted space, but now he feels distance. He expected peace, but now there's tension. He thought he was in control, but now you are. Your disappearance triggers questions he wasn't ready to answer. Did I misread her entirely? Was she stronger than I gave her credit for? Why do I feel like the one who got rejected? That shift from confidence to confusion is where regret starts to grow. And here's the wild part. The more you stay silent, the more powerful the memory of you becomes. You become an unanswered question in his life. And human beings hate open loops. We crave closure. So the longer you're gone, the more his mind obsesses over you. It's not revenge. It's not a game. It's called emotional self-respect. And when you walk away quietly, it forces him to see your worth, often for the very first time. Let's talk about one of the most misunderstood yet powerful moves in post-rejection dynamics, the no-contact strategy. Now, you've probably heard of it before, but I need you to really understand why it works and what makes it so psychologically effective, especially when a man thinks he's in control. When you go no contact, you're not ghosting, you're not playing games, you're creating an emotional boundary. And for the first time, you're saying, you no longer have unrestricted access to me. That decision alone triggers something deep inside a man, especially if he took your availability for granted. See, most men don't truly process the weight of their rejection until silence sets in. As long as you're responding, reacting, or lingering in his emotional space, even subtly, he still feels like he has the upper hand. But the moment you pull away completely, something shifts. That ego he was so confident in, it gets challenged, because the no contact strategy does two things. It forces reflection. Men aren't always quick to process emotional consequences. They often compartmentalize or distract themselves. But your silence creates space. And in that space, thoughts creep in. Questions rise up. Regret builds. Your absence becomes louder than any presence could be. He starts to wonder, did I make a mistake? Why isn't she reaching out? What if I misjudged her value? And those questions can quickly lead to emotional discomfort, which is exactly where growth and awareness begin. It repositions you in his mind. When you go no contact, you stop being the one who got rejected and start becoming the one he lost. That's a huge psychological shift. You're no longer the option. You become the mystery, the memory, the unanswered what if. And that perception shift is incredibly powerful. Here's the truth. Distance breeds desire when it's paired with dignity. If you walk away begging, you confirm his decision. But when you walk away calmly and confidently, you disrupt his expectations. And people remember disruptions. Now, let's be real. No contact isn't easy. You'll have moments of doubt. You'll be tempted to check in, reach out, or peek at his stories. But if you can resist that urge and stay grounded in your self-worth, you'll see the real magic of this strategy. Because no contact isn't about getting him back. It's about getting yourself back. It's about emotional clarity. It's about peace. And if he comes back, that's a decision you'll make from a place of power, not pain. But whether he returns or not, one thing is guaranteed. You'll rise stronger, clearer, and more in control than ever before. Let's talk about the moment he realizes you're really gone. It doesn't happen right away. In fact, it rarely hits him while you're still emotionally present, even if you're not physically there. But once you go silent, once you go emotionally unavailable, a slow but powerful rewiring process begins in his brain. And it starts with something he wasn't expecting to feel: regret. At first, he tells himself the breakup or rejection was the right choice. Maybe he wanted space. Maybe he believed the connection wasn't right for him. But here's where psychology flips the script. Human beings don't regret the people who cried or begged to stay. They regret the ones who walked away without explanation. You see, when you don't fight for the relationship after he ends it, it signals something dangerous to his ego. Maybe she didn't need me the way I thought. And that one thought creates an emotional crack. That's when the rewiring begins. Men are wired to process emotions later than women. It's not immaturity, it's just biology. Women often feel the pain up front. Men delay it. They distract, detach, deny. But once the dust settles and your silence remains unbroken, something changes. He starts to replay your value. Not the dramatic moments, not the last argument, but the small things. Your laugh, your support, your softness, your presence. And suddenly those things start to feel irreplaceable. This is the emotional rewiring phase. And it feels a lot like sleepless nights random flashbacks, avoiding your profile, but secretly checking it, feeling bothered when he sees you happy without him. It's not just nostalgia, it's emotional confusion, because now he's questioning everything. Was I wrong? Did I overreact? Was she actually the one? And here's the key. This doesn't happen while you're chasing him. It doesn't happen while you're proving your worth. It only happens when your absence creates space for truth. What makes this phase even more intense? Regret doesn't just come from missing you. It comes from realizing he can't access you anymore, that you've evolved, that you're no longer the same woman he walked away from. That shift is what destroys him. Not your silence, not your revenge, not your glow-up photos. It's the fact that he can feel deep down that you're healing without him, that you're rebuilding without needing his validation. That's when the ego starts crumbling. That's when regret becomes loud. And that's when he realizes he didn't just reject you, he lost you. So, what actually makes a man miss a woman? It's not just time. It's not just space. It's specific emotional triggers, quiet, invisible shifts that begin once you stop chasing and start reclaiming your power. When you were in his life, there was a rhythm. Maybe you checked in every day, sent kind messages, shared laughter, gave your energy. Whether he admitted it or not, he got used to it. That consistency became part of his emotional routine. So when it suddenly disappears, when you go quiet, withdraw or vanish, something in him stirs. His mind starts to notice the gap, not just your absence, but the emotional comfort you brought. That disruption is the first crack in his mental armor. It's often when he starts to feel off, uneasy, a little lost. Then comes the wave of memories, but not the bad ones. Our brains are wired to forget the messy parts and romanticize the warmth. So he doesn't remember the last argument. He remembers the way you used to look at him, the tone of your voice when you believed in him, the way you listened without judgment. That emotional nostalgia isn't a choice, it's chemical. His brain literally starts craving those feelings again, just like a drug. And now that he can't access you, those memories get louder, more vivid, more important. He starts asking silent questions. Why hasn't she reached out? Is she really done? Did I just lose someone who actually cared? The less he knows, the more he imagines. You become a mystery. A mystery is irresistible, especially to someone who thought they had you all figured out. Your silence doesn't just confuse him, it pulls him in. Because now, you're not the predictable woman who waits. You're the one who vanished without explanation. And that emotional blank space demands his attention. And here's where his ego gets involved. He may not admit it, but he expected you to react, to need him, to show some trace of emotional dependency. But when you don't, when you give him nothing but silence, it hits him where it hurts most. His sense of control. Suddenly he's not the one being missed. He's the one missing you. And it messes with his identity. All of this builds quietly, over days, sometimes weeks, but the result is the same. He starts replaying you, not just remembering, but obsessing, reanalyzing conversations, checking your social media without liking anything, wondering if someone else now gets the version of you he rejected. That's the power of emotional triggers. You didn't manipulate, you didn't beg, you just let go, and in doing so, became unforgettable. You may think he's moved on, you may believe he's forgotten you, but the truth, if you've gone silent, walked away with grace, and left a noticeable space in his life, he's watching you, quietly, indirectly, and often without leaving a trace. One of the clearest signs he's secretly watching is sudden, unexplained views on your stories or content. Maybe he never used to watch your posts, and nowadays or even weeks later his name pops up. Maybe it's not consistent, but it's random enough to catch your attention. That's not an accident. That's curiosity breaking through his pride. He wants to know what you're doing without you knowing he cares. That little act of watching your stories is his way of keeping tabs without having to open a conversation. But sometimes he gets more clever. He won't watch your stories, but he'll view from a fake account. You might notice a new viewer, a suspicious page, with no posts and a weird username that suddenly appears right after something major happens in your life. You got a glow up, started a new job, shared a photo that looks a little too good to ignore, Trust me, if he's emotionally invested, he's watching from somewhere, even if his name isn't showing. Another sign? Sudden engagement from his friends or mutuals. Maybe someone close to him starts liking your photos out of nowhere. Or you bump into a mutual friend who seems to know too much about your life. That's not coincidence. That's him gathering information through safe channels. He might even ask others about you because he wants to know, but doesn't want to admit that he still cares. And sometimes the signs aren't digital at all. You might randomly see him where you used to go together. You hear he showed up at that cafe you love. He might not say anything, but his presence speaks volumes. He's placing himself in your world again, hoping to reconnect without having to make the first move. The truth is, when a man realizes what he's lost, but his pride is still in control, he doesn't always come forward. He observes, quietly, secretly, through likes he doesn't click, stories he doesn't reply to, and spaces he once shared with you. His silence may feel like indifference, but more often than not, it's surveillance. And the longer you stay out of reach, the more curious he becomes. Not just about your life, but about how you're thriving without him. At some point after the rejection, after the silence, he starts to reevaluate everything. And this moment doesn't happen because you asked him to. It happens because your absence triggers something deep inside his mind, a space he wasn't ready to face. You see, men are used to thinking they know exactly what they want, but when they lose it or realize they never truly appreciated it, they start to question everything they thought was true. It doesn't happen immediately. At first, he might feel relieved, or at least convinced he made the right decision. But as time passes and your silence continues, he starts to feel this undercurrent of doubt. It's subtle at first, like a flicker in the back of his mind. He may wonder if he could have done things differently. Could he have treated you better? Should he have given more? What if he missed something that could have changed the outcome? This isn't just about missing you. It's about the realization that he might have misjudged the entire relationship. He starts replaying moments, not just the big ones, but the small ones, the quiet moments where you supported him, laughed with him, where you were simply present. He starts to wonder, did I push her away too easily? Was I wrong to not fight for this? And that's when his mind starts to open up to the uncomfortable idea that maybe, just maybe, you were exactly what he needed. He'll go through a mental process of justifying his actions, telling himself he did what was best, that he had his reasons. But deep down, there's this nagging feeling, what if I've let something incredible slip away? This is the stage where he starts reevaluating everything, not just his actions, but his perspective on you and the relationship. His brain will start to reframe how he sees your value. What once felt like just another relationship now seems important in a way he didn't fully understand at the time. And this doesn't happen overnight. It builds slowly in the quiet spaces where he finds himself alone with his thoughts. What makes this so difficult for him is that he doesn't want to admit he was wrong. His pride, his ego, keeps him from reaching out immediately, even when the regret starts to surface. He's stuck in this emotional battle between what he thought was best and what he now feels. The longer he waits to process this, the more he replays the emotional gap left behind by your absence. And here's the twist. As he reevaluates everything, he doesn't just think about what went wrong. He thinks about what could have been, the future he might have missed out on. He starts to wonder what it would have been like if he'd given more of himself, if he'd taken more risks. And by now, you're no longer just a person in his past. You're a person he wishes he could have again. So while he won't show it, your absence is creating the perfect storm of self-doubt and longing. And just like that, without you saying a word, you've made him reevaluate everything. Your silence is speaking louder than anything you could have said. So you've been thinking about him, wondering if there's any way to turn things around. The idea of getting back together feels tempting, especially when you've been through so much. But before you take any action, there are certain things you absolutely should not do, because doing them will only push him further away, not bring him closer. First of all, don't beg or plead. It's natural to want to show him how much you care, especially when you feel vulnerable and raw. But begging for his attention or pleading for him to come back will only show him that you're emotionally dependent on him. It strips you of your dignity and puts you in a position of weakness where you're seeking validation from someone who has already rejected you. He won't respect you for this. Instead, it gives him the power to control the situation, and trust me, no one wants to feel like they're someone's last resort. Secondly, don't chase him. This is one of the biggest mistakes you can make. If you've already gone through the process of creating space and taking a step back, the last thing you want to do is undo all that progress. Chasing him, whether it's through texts, phone calls, or constantly showing up where he is, shows desperation. It lets him know that no matter how he treats you, you'll always be there, waiting for him. And when someone knows they have you wrapped around their finger, they have no incentive to work for your attention. Instead, you need to let him feel what it's like to miss you, not be constantly available for him. Next, don't try to manipulate the situation. I know it can feel tempting to play a few mind games, maybe act cold or distant, flirt with other people, or accidentally make him jealous. But these tactics are not only dishonest, they are emotionally immature. If you want him back for the right reasons, it has to be genuine. Trying to manipulate his feelings or play on his insecurities won't lead to anything healthy. In fact, it will likely backfire, leaving both of you in a cycle of manipulation, confusion, and regret. Another huge mistake. Don't give him an ultimatum. Telling him either we're getting back together or I'm done with you forever only puts pressure on him and doesn't give either of you the space to truly process your feelings. It's a form of emotional blackmail, and while it may get a reaction from him in the short term, it won't lead to a lasting solution. You need to allow him the time to come to his own conclusions. Forcing a decision only creates resentment, and resentment is not the foundation for love. Finally, don't ignore your own healing process. A lot of people think that getting back together is the answer to all their pain. But if you haven't done the emotional work to heal and regain your own sense of self-worth, you're setting yourself up for another cycle of hurt. Instead of focusing solely on getting him back, focus on getting yourself back. Take the time to rebuild your confidence, your peace, and your happiness. A healthy relationship starts with two people who are already complete on their own, not two people who are trying to fix each other. Remember, if he's going to come back, it has to be because he genuinely values you. Not because you've begged him, chased him, or manipulated him into it. Give him the space to miss you and reflect. But more importantly, give yourself the time to heal and grow. When you do that, you'll be in a much stronger position to decide if getting back together is even what's best for both of you. If there's one thing you need to understand, it's this. Silence is not weakness. Silence is strength. When you choose to stay silent after rejection, it's not because you're helpless or lost. It's because you've chosen to step into your own power and reclaim your emotional control. It's easy to feel like you're losing when you're quiet. You might think he'll forget you, that he'll move on faster than you will. But the truth is, your silence speaks volumes. It communicates that you respect yourself enough not to beg or chase someone who isn't fully invested. It tells him that you're no longer emotionally available for the chaos, for the games, or for the emotional roller coaster. And that message is more powerful than anything you could say or do. Staying silent doesn't mean you're being passive. It doesn't mean you're sitting around waiting for him to make the first move. No, silence means you're using this time to heal, grow, and focus on yourself. It's about finding your balance again. Remember, you didn't lose yourself in the relationship. You were just temporarily distracted. Now is the time to refocus, to rediscover the things that make you happy, and to reconnect with your passions. Whether that's diving into your career, reconnecting with friends, or taking up a new hobby, silence gives you the space to rebuild your life on your own terms. This is the time when you learn to be comfortable in your own company, to find joy within yourself rather than depending on someone else for validation, when you are whole and happy on your own.